everyone, let's begin. Thank you for joining us at Darby Creek Valley Association annual meeting. I am Jacqueline Rhodes. I am president of the board. We are, for the first time, simultaneously having an in-person as well as a Zoom session going on. So we do have people actually logged into our Zoom right now. For those of you that will have questions or comments, please come up to the mic. And of course, food will be open for the duration of the meeting until we break for lunch later. Okay. So if you so choose, and assuming my slide would advance, there we go. We could do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And then we also wanted to make sure that we recognize the indigenous cultures that obviously have been here, continue to be present in our region, and recognizing all the wonderful assets and attributes of the earth that we have really moved away from over the years. And my apologies if I do not pronounce this correctly, but from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of Nations, this is a Thanksgiving address to the natural world. And so to the waters, they say, we give thanks to all the waters of the world. We are grateful that the waters are still here and bring their duty to sustain life on Mother Earth. Water is life, quenching our thirst and providing us with strength, making the plants grow and sustaining us all. Let us gather our minds together, and with one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the waters. Yes. Not working. Oh, you can't hear me. Yes. It says I am.
It says you're sharing it.
It says you're screen sharing. But okay. We'll work through some technical difficulties here. All right. So now I'd like to give a highlight of all the wonderful activities that have taken place over the past year at DCVA, and thought I would just, yes, one second. Trying to do too many things at one time. So now I have to go back into my Zoom to share screen. All right. You can't see that. They can't see this. All right. Give me 1 second here. Well, let me exit out. All right, here we go. I think I've gotten the glitches corrected, hopefully. Yay. All right. So this is our wonderful annual report where they cannot see the screen.
Yeah, so see where you're in, they can see you. Go up to new share. Maybe.
It's listed. It's grabbed.
Sure. Okay. Oh yeah, do that.
I'll try that. All right. We're going to continue on. So, but then they could see everybody's. All right, here we go. So this is our annual report, and which we have copies in the back for you all. There are a lot of wonderful things that take place normally at DCVA on a regular basis. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers and board members, and actually, let me recognize those board members. If board members who stand up quickly. And if we want to give them a round of applause for all their work. And I also, my apologies, almost failed to mention Aurora, who's our manager at DCVA, obviously doing a lot of fantastic things. So for the first time, we put together a governance committee. So trying to make sure that we're staying on top of various activities or requirements in terms of updating our bylaws, making sure we have a good process for transparency with the organization. Of course, our main event, our annual cleanup. And how many people here participate in our annual cleanups? Okay, that's wonderful. Nearly everyone. And really that is a draw to pull in volunteers, obviously members, and really helping to educate and engage our young people. So of course we had our 38th annual Darby Creek cleanup this past year. And we had 600 volunteers, 40 sites, and picked up nearly 17,000 pounds of trash. So obviously a wonderful event that we continue to host year in and year out. Another exciting opportunity, which we will hear more about today with our annual meeting, is the development of a new updated Darby Creek watershed management plan. That is, I don't want to give away all the details. Obviously, it's just starting, it's in the works, but we were fortunate enough to receive a grant directed through Natural Lands Trust that will help develop this very comprehensive plan and really addressing the needs and issues that are going on within the watershed right now. Obviously, cleaning up our waterways is still absolutely critical and a key component of this work, but we've been doing cleanups for nearly 40 years, right? There comes a point in time where, of course, certain stretches you might not find as much trash anymore, which is a huge success, but we should be eliminating these cleanups. We should be getting to the point where we're addressing some other issues like downstream flooding that carries a lot of that debris and trash. We have to be educating people and getting to the point where we're addressing floatables and plastics. And not to say that our job will ever be done, but we need to get to the point to try to move ourselves out of that realm and figure out other ways and other strategies to address these issues. And of course, above all, climate change. So you will hear more about that today. Aurora runs many wonderful programs with school children, young children that are still in preschool and daycare. And obviously, educating our youth is critical, so we have these great stewards later on in life. So I won't give you all the fine details, but obviously there's a lot of activity, a lot of events that have been taking place, and welcome your thoughts and feedback as you go through our annual report. I do want to highlight and thank Kate and Jerry, who work on this report. They put together the final pieces, bugging all of us in gathering that information, and of course, laying out in a beautiful way that looks fantastic. All right. So with that said, and I will thank all of you, obviously, for being here and being members and continuing to support our organization. Now I'm back. Hopefully I've gotten to the swing of things here. Yes, but it's just a brief update. So our Board of Elections will occur immediately after our annual meeting today, as opposed to our Board of Directors meeting. So I just wanted to let everyone know. So it's a slight change to our agenda. And I wanted to also switch things up just ever so slightly, in that I wanted to present our Ribbon of Green Award while all of you are here. I know some people might have to leave early, and I think it's always nice to share with the audience who has been really doing phenomenal work. And not to say that we all aren't doing phenomenal work, but we can only recognize one person per year. And this year, we wanted to recognize someone that has worked in the watershed for many, many years, has been involved with DCVA well before me, And of course, he doesn't know he's getting this award. So it's like a game, right? We're gonna put out little clues to see if they think, oh, is it me? But in any case, this individual has built many rain gardens. He has significant expertise as an engineer, and he is one of our vice presidents and helped to launch Solarize Delco. So if you don't know who you already are, Peter, will you please stand up? I come to the front. So many of you may know Peter and all the work that he has done. And it's just, wonderful to have so many board members with wonderful backgrounds, experience, knowledge, but just passion for doing the work that they do, and to stick with the organization for so long. And that has been one of the treasures with DCVA, is that we've had board members here for many, many, many years, as well as volunteers and friends. So congrats, Peter. We will have your plaque for you later on. Okay, so going back, hopefully people online could see the agenda, but don't worry, I'm only staying here briefly before I get into a brief update for the John Hines. So I'm going to actually change my virtual hat from president of DCVA to vice president of Friends of Hines Refuge. Unfortunately, someone from the refuge couldn't be here today, but I will share some of the cool activities and events that are going on at the refuge. And I have to exit because I can't see anything going on here. So give me 1 minute. Here we go. So how many people have been to John Hines? I figured a lot of people.
Went there when it was Seneca.
When it was, yes, it wasn't officially called John Hines National Wildlife Refuge, right? And, it's amazing, right? The transformation that has occurred over the years, from before they had a visitor center, right? And they just had a little stone house and trails. I grew up in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia. And I remember being, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 or 11. And my friend and her family took me there. And I thought I was lost in the jungle. There was starting to thunder. I thought I saw lightning strike in the distance. And, I thought it was really cool, but I was also scared. And now it's just interesting coming full circle how involved I am in that region, never imagining that I would be helping to continue to enhance this treasure. So as I said, I am the vice president for the Friends of Hines Refuge. So we're the nonprofit affiliated with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to help manage certain projects, funnel money, of course, raise funds for the refuge system. And we do have a membership that helps doing that. So there have been a lot of activities going on at the John Hines over this past year under leadership of Lamar Gore. A number of those include actually doing some restoration projects. And those restoration projects are helping to address some flooding to help also improve habitat for a number of wetland species. And so if you actually go to visit, if you're seeing some activity going on, that is what is happening. And so certain trails will be closed during that activity, but I think we're nearing to the point where that restoration project will be coming to an end in the next year or so. This is something that actually was part of a restoration project years ago that didn't actually work out. And a flood came through and blew out the banks of the area that they were trying to enhance in terms of wetlands. And so now, going back at it, it seems as if they're going to really address this problem and it'll provide good habitat for birds and other aquatic organisms. There are also a variety of events, education programs, and of course, our Darby Creek cleanup, which takes place there on Saturday, April 22nd. Wait, that says 2022. That's a misprint. It is 2023. And there, of course, if you're not already signed up for a particular location, they could always use many more hands to help out and clean up over at the refuge area. As I had mentioned before with our Darby Creek watershed management plan, that we are looking to address things like floatables and plastic, and how you have all of this water coming down into the lower portion of the creek. A lot of that collects into the refuge area. All right. And I'm sure you've seen, plastic bottles on the side of waterways in different places. And so a number of people will go out in boats and to help clean that up. But there is an effort actually through the Friends of Hines Refuge as well to look at plastic debris, what are things that we could do to improve that? And of course, overall, reducing our plastic use is absolutely critical. We also have a number of events focused on like photography and art for students as well as adults, but the Junior Duck Stamp Art Contest will be taking place if you know of kids, if you have in lower grade all the way up through high school. Or others, please let them know about this opportunity to develop the art for the duck stamp. And so there are prizes associated with it, and one winner moves on to the national contest as well. So pretty exciting, a lot of fun opportunities. And like I said, I'll be around if you have any questions regarding any of this. Oh, well, I should mention though, if you do have questions, please, feel free to interrupt me and raise your hand. So one thing I wanted to share, does anybody know how I could get my toolbar? Wait, did I just have it? Well, I know I could slide it over. Well, anyway. All right. So the wildlife refuge, as we know, starts in Philadelphia and stems into Delaware County. And there's actually a good bit of land that most people may not realize is not part of the John Hines system. So there's about 128 acres adjacent to the refuge that some years ago was being proposed for development by Corman Suites. Anybody here part of that effort? We went down to City Hall and I know Robin, yes. One other. I'm not sure what that means, the off-rise boundary or the park itself. It could have been Toll Brothers building it for Corman, but they were going to add in more. Well, it was originally zoned for additional townhomes, and they were asking for a variance to be able to build like condos, and which would increase the density number of people there, which is ultimately why I think it got defeated, because when you go through these special exceptions for those development, obviously it's another layer, another hoop that they have to go through, and the city council said no. They only said no because of the groundswell of support by the community predominantly, and of course, there were members just outside of Eastwick also that were very supportive and came out in opposition to that plan. So there have been a number of, since that time, plans to discuss how well to improve Eastwick, because of the abandoned high school due to flooding. They obviously have a lot of flooding in that area because of all the development upstream, because of climate change. There's a landfill there that DCVA has been involved with, helping to monitor the cleanup, and that's been very successful. So a lot of great success, great work by residents and those nearby and DCVA to help improve the area surrounding the John Hines system. But this land area is not only critical to the refuge, but also to the community members there, because this will make a big difference in terms of, one, will there be additional stormwater flooding? Two, congestion, and in terms of aesthetics, what does the community want to see over there? Open space versus just more development. And so it was very clear at the time, and continues to be for a number of residents, that they would like to see that area protected for a number of reasons. And I bring this up because it is a big issue right now. And you're getting a little bit of a preview, but the Friends of Hines Refuge, in conjunction with some partners, are getting ready to launch an education campaign about the 128 acres and how the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is willing to be a recipient to acquire that land in order to, one, obviously help protect the immediate residents from flooding, but two, work on a long-term plan that will help hopefully redirect flooding throughout the community to that area. And so not only will prevent future flooding, but also maybe try to restore areas so we can limit flooding that a lot of people experience in other parts of Eastwick. So just to zoom in a little bit, this being the refuge boundary, this is the land area that most people don't realize is not part of the refuge system over there. And so this is the development over here that sits there now in the front over by 86th Street and Hook Road. So like I said, this is a preview. The idea here is to hopefully help push the municipal officials to leave it to nature, and hopefully more information will be coming out soon regarding that. And so some of the additional fun things that took place this past year, through Friends of Hines Refuge, we helped the refuge system celebrate their 50th anniversary. So as you were saying, you remembered when it was Tinicum, there's a long history of protecting the John Hines Refuge. Before it was even named John Hines, there were a number of people that fought to protect that area from expansion of the airport, from additional development. Obviously, we know 95, cuts through that area. And so it was great to help celebrate. And normally we have like a festival every year in June, and we use that to help celebrate the 50th anniversary. We will be having actually another summer solstice festival this June coming up, and it's a great opportunity to get outdoors and enjoy the refuge late into the evening with some activities. And then it was also the Friends of Hines Refuge 25th anniversary. And so we had a nice gala and activities that was well supported by many people in this room as well. So welcome any questions about the refuge. Try to answer as much as I can, although I'm not claiming to have all the information available regarding the activities that are taking place there or about the Friends group. Okay, Peter. So he asked, is there a path to incorporating the area, the 128 acres, into the Hines, and what is that path? So the path is hopefully that we will be launching this Leave It to Nature campaign to convince the elected officials to sell to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I don't want to share too many more details, but in any case, definitely there will be an opportunity, and we'll be sharing it more publicly, how people can get engaged to help with that effort.
Yeah, I do something that's people will remember what I do annually. I'm Tom Smith, and I go back one notch from the very beginning. And I always like to talk about the history of it. And I like to remember every year, first President Gail Lawrence, who for some years was our first president. And when he would hear something that he agreed with and he liked, he would say cheer, he would hear, hear, hear. And every year, and I'm going to do this as long as there's Darby Creek water is flowing in my body, that I'm going to count on, I'm going to do a count of three. On the count of three, we're going to do a Gail Lawrence Probest. Here, here. 1, 2.
Here.
Gail Lawrence is looking down and smiling.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good, Robert.
The nation of the land, within the refuge boundaries is groundwater. Is the plan established to clean that up, or is there still else?
So the question was related to the Clearview landfill, and actually there are two landfills. One is called Fallcroft, the other Clearview. There have been obviously a series of remediation steps that have been taken. One to remove soil that's been in the adjacent nearby area. The other is to, which is almost done, cap the landfill with what do we call, like a semi-permeable cover. But then there's still groundwater contamination. And because of the extent of contamination in the area, they've had to separate each section of contamination out as its own plan, and what they call an operable unit. That's the terminology used by the Environmental Protection Agency that's obviously coordinating all this. And so they've been taking each portion step by step, completing that task, and now the last one is the groundwater. So they're calling it, I think, operable unit 4. So the process kind of starts all over again, where they do the assessment. They obviously have done significant amount of testing to know that this contamination exists. A way to address some of that is part of this like pump and treat system under the landfill that reapplies the contamination back on top of the landfill, hoping that the bioremediation, as it keeps going through that process, will help. But they have still to address and finalize the remediation plan for the groundwater. And so DCVA plays the role of being a recipient of the technical assistance grant by EPA to use funds to hire a consultant that obviously has the expertise in evaluating their plan, their tests, so that we can weigh in on, okay, do we think this is reasonable? Do we have suggestions? And definitely there have been times that we have said, wait a minute, X, Y, and Z should be done. So that is forthcoming. There's going to be actually a meeting in the next week or so, launching or sharing more about that process, but still in the early phases, because they realize how extensive it is, and really trying to make sure that they take all the necessary steps. So I will say that even though it's taken a number of years to clean up, and obviously the Darby Creek being directly impacted right there, that at least EPA is taking the time to properly address each issue of contamination, not lump it all in together. So that's on the positive side, but obviously this has been going on for a couple decades.
And just to be sure, as a TAG representative, for a while, I was alarmed to learn that these contaminants, they're most fearful of them going under the Delaware River to New Jersey wells. So that's how far it's going down. It's not all surface stuff, and I don't think they'll be able to deal with it. Philadelphia, New Jersey drinking water is down low, you know, equivalent to Tinicum on the map. Philadelphia's way up in Torresdale or something like that, and it's only a concern if the salt line creeps up from Chester on the river. So it's not a concern for Philadelphia or Pennsylvania water, but it is a very big direct concern for drinking water in New Jersey.
So if you didn't hear Scott, there's a concern that that water obviously drifts away. I mean, nothing just stays here. Natural progression of watersheds is to, you know, drain to the ocean. And so this, you know, water, some of the contamination migrating out to the Delaware and then into New Jersey, and then obviously going further out. So of course, that would all be part of the process to evaluate. And we are going to have another mic, so then you all can talk on it.
Test. Okay, I got it.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Now we are going to move on to our next presenter, who, if I have my schedule correctly, Rick is here. Yay. All right, so as I was telling you before, I was just giving you a little preview of this plan that's being developed. Rick Traley's, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Okay. From Natural Lands Trust is working with us on it, and he's the expert, so I'm just going to turn it over to him. Here you go. I just need to
Thank you.
screen share real fast. All right, I think you're good. Maybe not.
Am I just advancing with the space bar then?
Right there.
Okay.
The camera's here,
Okay.
but you can wait.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for giving me a little bit of time on your agenda today. I'm Rick Traley's from Natural Lands, and I'm here to talk to you about the Darby Creek Watershed Resilience, Conservation, and Management Plan. I've heard people say that if you truly understand something, you can explain it in 30 seconds. I have 20 minutes, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to truly explain all of this because we're still pretty much near the beginning. We have a lot of information to gather. We have a lot of questions to ask, and I'm going to ask you to help us gather some of that information and answer some of those questions. So I'm going to do something that I hesitate to do, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask you all to take out your phones and scan this QR code. If you have an iPhone, you should be able to use your camera, point it at the screen, and when you get a little yellow frame around the QR code, just touch that. If you have a different kind of phone, I have no idea how to do it, but considering everything has been QR codes for the last 2 years, hopefully you'll figure it out. Yes, Jacqueline.
You just note that as they're scanning it, a box should pop up, that you click on the link. So don't just take the photo, wait till it focuses, and then the link will pop up.
Yeah.
Everybody hear that? So you wait till it focuses on your phone, and then a link will pop up. So you're not actually taking a photo, but you're opening up the camera app in order to do that. And I see some are working there.
All right. Well, if you can't get it right now, that's okay. I'll put this back up at the end. But when you think you've got it, I'm going to ask you to turn off your ringer and put your phone away.
Then I can send it.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. So I don't want you to do the questionnaire now, But I wanted to get this to you now in case we ran out of time or I just forgot later. So now you have the questionnaire. You can do it later. You can email it to your friends. You can get your friends to help you get to it if you need help. But now you've got it. So now I'm asking you to put your phones back away. Thank you all. Okay, let's just kind of center ourselves in the watershed real quick. This is from the Darby Creek Valley website, Flow Facts. It's a big watershed. A lot of people live here. There are a lot of sub watersheds. And that's part of what makes it really hard for us to wrap our heads around this project. You all know the watershed is very different from top to bottom. The communities are different. The people are different. The flow conditions of the creeks are very different. We're here, sort of on that line between the middle and top third of the watershed. And as you're wondering too, who is this guy up here talking to you? I'm not just a consultant. I am also a resident of the watershed. I live in Narberth, which is sort of on the far right, to the right of the arrow. My kids spend a lot of time in the East Branch of the Indian Creek in the summertime in Short Ridge Park. So I live in this watershed too. I care about this watershed too. I'm personally connected to the project. So there is an existing Darby Creek Watershed Conservation Plan. It's a thick document with a lot of text and a lot of great information, but it's getting a little old now. It's from 2005. In terms of like municipal and watershed plans, 15 to 20 years is not ridiculously outdated, but it's time to start thinking about updates. And we realized that this plan has a lot of good information in it, and we looked back at it, but we also realized that a lot has happened in the last 15 years, and it's time to do something a little bit different. We know about the big issues in our area. Regional flooding is a big one. This flood warning is actually right now. I searched for coastal flood warning yesterday on Google, just looking for some graphic, and surprise, a coastal flood warning for today from 9 a.m. to 3 a.m. popped up for Delaware County, Philadelphia, Bucks, and parts of Montgomery County. So we're in a flood warning right now. And you see in the red, that's about where our watershed is. Of course, localized flooding is the big driver. This is, I believe, Darby Borough during Hurricane Isaias. Thankfully, we live in a state and a county that at least right now believes climate change is real and is a real problem. That's one of the drivers of this plan too. How do we make our communities and ourselves as individuals more resilient to climate change? We know that our plan isn't going to stop climate change, but we can look at what it's going to do, what we know is happening, and how can we at least better prepare ourselves for the effects. We also know that Pennsylvania has decades worth of old stormwater management facilities that just don't function the way we thought they were going to function when they were built in the 70s and 80s. Big old basins like this one, the thinking used to be that if you would catch water in a big basin like this one and then just very slowly let it flow into the existing creeks, that would be okay. That would stop flooding. But we're finding now that it's actually the amount of water that gets into our creeks that are damaging the creeks. It doesn't matter if you hold it in a basin and then slowly let it trickle in, still damages the stream, still causes erosion, sedimentation, and ultimately flooding. So we've got a lot of old infrastructure to deal with. This is the most boring part, but ordinances and local regulations are important. Some communities in this watershed probably have very good ordinances, but your ordinances also are only as good as the people enforcing them. If your planning commission constantly waives all of the environmental protections, then it doesn't matter what's written in your ordinances. So that's an issue we need to look at. We also know there are big environmental justice issues in this watershed. Over the last few years, as the Black Lives Matter initiative has really brought some of these issues to the forefront, just about every local and state agency and nonprofit has mapped environmental issues against race, against economics, against English as a second language. And no surprise, the poorer communities and communities of color really get dumped on environmentally. That's where a lot of the flooding is. That's where the air pollution is. That's where the problems are. So we need to try to make a plan that takes everyone's concerns into account, that talks to the whole watershed. And that's something, honestly, we haven't really done too much yet. That's part of the project, though, as we go forward. So obviously, we know there's a lot to deal with. There's a lot to discuss and a lot to figure out, and it's going to take a lot of money. We have good funding, though, from Delaware County through their newish Greenways grants. We have money from the Foundation for Delaware County, and we have money from all of you too. Thank you. I can't do this alone, of course. So we've put together a steering committee that is pretty representative of the watershed. So if you're one of the steering committee members, would you just for a moment stand up or raise your hand? Who's here? I've only seen the steering committee on Zoom so far, so it's actually even hard to recognize people in person, but they're probably all on Zoom now. So I don't actually see them now either, but we've got a really good group, a smart group that represents a variety of interests and expertise across the watershed. All right, I said that, well, I started by asking you to do a questionnaire, and I asked the task force also to do a lot of questionnaires, to do a lot of mapping exercises, to fill in a lot of spreadsheets for us. It's sort of an inside secret that a good consultant makes the client do the work, and that's what I'm doing. I'm asking all of you and our steering committee to do most of the work for us. So one of the tools we've asked them to use is a Google map showing us the important places in the watershed, because while I said I live in the watershed, I still don't know all of it. So I've asked the task force to tell us what are the important places, and they can be places that are really good examples, like Radnor Middle School has rain gardens and green roofs. This parking lot is a good example of green stormwater infrastructure, rain gardens in parking lots. It can be a place that has a lot of issues, things that need to be addressed that we should know about as part of the plan that maybe we can help fix. Or it could be places with opportunities, like this is a parcel that could be, the owner could be convinced to get rid of their lawn and plant a meadow. It could be a golf course that might be open to more plantings or riparian buffers or something like that. And one of the questions in your questionnaire also is, do you know any of these important places that we should know about? So you can think about that a little bit. We've also asked the task force to give us one big idea. And I think I forgot to put one big idea in your questionnaire, but there is an open-ended question that you could write it in there. One big idea can be something sort of silly, but relevant. I did a project for the Kinwood Trail in Lower Merion Township many years ago. And one person's big idea was, how about a zip line from the Kinwood Trail all the way across the river to Manioc? Now that's not realistic, but it underscores the idea that it's important to connect to Manioc, and the trail could also have a little bit of fun and whimsy to it. So if you have a big idea for the watershed, tell us that in the questionnaire too. It can be silly, it can be realistic, but think big. All right. The task force did come up with a series of 6 preliminary goals. And I say these are preliminary because we have not taken them to the public yet. They can definitely change. We started by looking back at the last plan, which had a series of about 10 overarching goals. And we asked the task force, which of these are still important, which are still relevant, which are not. So we started there. So you can take a moment to just read those goals. I don't like to read slides at you if I don't have to. So I've touched on most of these already briefly, but I'll go through a little bit of what some of them mean. And I'll start with, we've already started working on identifying parcels for conservation. Natural Lands, as a land trust, we do this all the time for communities. Frequently, though, we're looking for big properties. And no surprise, there's not a ton of really big properties in this watershed. On this map, everything that's in green is over 25 acres. So there's a fair amount of them. A lot of them are golf courses, a lot of them are cemeteries, some of them are schools. But there's not a whole lot. And we don't know if this is where we're going to be able to make a huge difference in this watershed or not. So we took one step further and started to go a little deeper. And I know this map is a little hard to read. We'll call it a draft right now. I'll stop moving.
Didn't like that.
No, I stepped on a wire. But we started looking at smaller parcels that overlap with floodplains to try to get a sense of where is flooding happening on small parcels, where can we make a difference in communities, just working with regular people. And there's a lot more. A couple of our quick takeaways. When you do first look at the maps of the watershed, you see there are a lot of golf courses and a lot of cemeteries. But when we think about the overall size of this watershed, the golf courses and cemeteries actually don't make up that much of the watershed, only about 2% each. So if you came into this thinking like we can make a huge difference at these kind of places, we can still make a difference there. There's still good landowners to work with. There's still good opportunities there. But it also tells us we're going to have to work with individual landowners and municipalities. We're also right now digging into the ordinances. We're trying to just get a sense of what ordinances are out there right now. We often find that communities start to copy from their neighbors. So if you look at a lot of ordinances across one landscape, you start to find the same wording, the same sections just copied and pasted. And when they're good ordinances, that's great. When they're not very strong, that's a problem. So we want to figure out what's on the books now, what's working, what's not working. Right now, a couple of my colleagues are literally just reading ordinance after ordinance and filling out spreadsheets. We know we're going to have to follow up with interviews with planning commission members, township and borough managers, and like EAC members, other people who are closer in these communities to know what's really happening. We're not trying to grade anybody. We're not trying to rank anybody. That really just rankles people. So we're not trying to do that. We're trying to just get a good sense of what's actually happening. So while we're reviewing these ordinances, we're trying to find out what are the communities doing, if anything, to protect wetlands. Are they doing buffers around wetlands or things like that? Are they requiring planting around wetlands? What do they do for tree protection? Do they have maximum or minimum protection percentages? Do they have tree replacement standards? What are their landscaping standards like? When something does get built, do they have to plant an adequate number of trees? Do they have to do green stormwater infrastructure? What do they have to do with their developments? And we know this can be applied to urban settings as well. You can still have trees where you have sidewalks and streets and buildings close to each other. We're looking at what their design standards are. Do they require or permit conservation design types of development, things like cluster design, designs that require some open space and protect natural resources? Do the ordinances permit or at least not have barriers to good site practices? Things like permitting meadows instead of vast lawns. Do they permit rain gardens? Do they permit connected downspouts? These all sound like really simple things that all of you, I'm sure, know about, but you would be surprised how many municipal ordinances have things that are not even related to these that end up being a barrier. Frequently curbing is the big barrier to rain gardens and green stormwater infrastructure. Again, the old approach was lots of concrete, make sure we control exactly where the water goes, get it into the sewers and get it into the streams. That makes it hard to do green stormwater infrastructure. So we're looking for barriers. We're looking for permissions on good site practices. We're looking at street widths. You all know that impervious surface is a big problem. Streets are just plain too wide. We hear the argument frequently from townships that we need to have enough space for our fire engines to get through. If there's a house fire, we have to be able to get there easily. But we would say, well, look at the numbers of house fires you've had recently versus the number of car accidents or the number of pedestrians killed by speeding cars. Wider streets lead to more speed, more traffic, more danger. Again, looking at, do the street designs permit things like roadside rain gardens, vegetated swales, green stormwater infrastructure? Do we require too much parking and not enough landscaping or stormwater in the parking lots? Can we do better parking lots like this one, with plantings in the middle, draining stormwater in the planting islands? What about riparian buffers? Are we protecting our streams with our ordinances, and are we enforcing those ordinances? More about stormwater management, what's permitted, what's required. And we're looking at, what are the high intensity uses here in this watershed? What are the problem uses that are popping up? We know there are brownfields, we know there are landfills, existing issues like that, but we're also trying to get in front of what are the big troublesome trends right now. As planners, we're seeing further up in the Poconos and really anywhere there's a highway, warehouses everywhere. Here, our task force has told us one of the bigger issues right now is still self-storage units. They're almost all impervious cover. So we want to take a look at those kind of regulations as well. Then at the end, we put together a big spreadsheet, compare, contrast, figure out the trends, figure out where we can make improvements. And I said at the beginning, I'm not sure exactly where this project ends up yet, but we may end up with some model ordinances or some case studies, some things we can hand to municipalities and say, this is a good ordinance, you can drop this right into your existing ordinance with a little tweaking, or this is what this community has done, it's working for them, you could do it too. All right, we're also looking at other existing programs. One of our task force members brought up Blue Acres in New Jersey. This is a program that looks at past flood insurance claims. After so many claims on the same property, the state would offer to buy out that property from the landowner. They only work with willing landowners, but frankly, if your home floods 3 times, it's going to be hard to sell that to another homeowner, and most of them have welcomed it. Now, I don't think that we're going to establish a statewide program like this through this project. But I do think that our local officials are going to have their eye on what we're doing. So if we can start conversations about alternatives, about existing programs like this, it's a good time to do it. Okay, so that's sort of what we're digging into right now. This is envisioned to be, I believe, a 2-year project. It's a long project. I have a lot of long-term projects and I've lost track, frankly. It's maybe a 2-year project. It's maybe even a 3-year project. But we have a lot more work to do. Right now, we're going to keep reviewing ordinances. We're going to keep studying maps. We're going to start doing more site visits and getting out throughout the watershed to just see what it all looks like and see what's happening everywhere. We also need to begin the public process fairly soon. As I said, everything I've shown you is sort of in progress, preliminary draft. We need to start actually getting out and talking to people. That was one of the big drivers when we started talking about this project, actually about 2 years ago. I think Jacqueline first called us to talk about it, was that we really needed to make a plan that was for everyone in the watershed and was accessible and usable by everyone in the watershed. The old plan has a ton of information, but I don't think many of you are going to pick up that 200 pages of text and spend your Saturday with it. We want to make something that actually addresses the problems that people are talking about and gives them ways that they can actually address those problems. Our end product, I don't know exactly yet. I feel like some of it is starting to come into a little focus. I'm sure there will be a written report. That'll definitely be part of it. But I also am thinking about this as trying to provide people with a toolkit. A couple examples out there right now from Chester County. I really like the way that Chester County has put their new comprehensive plan. It's called Landscapes 3 online. It's very clickable. What goal do you want to look at? You click on it. What objectives are under that goal? You click on those for more and more information. Chester County has also created recently some community profiles. We might be able to do something like that, if not down to a community level, maybe a regional across the watershed, to be able to have a handout that basically says, okay, I live in this region. These are the things that the plan identifies as our issues. These are the ways that the plan says we can address them, and this is where the funding is. So I don't know exactly what we're going to end up with, but we want it to be usable. We want it to be accessible. We don't just want a 200-page plan. So you can try this again, but I'm also ready for your questions. Like I said, I still have a lot of questions about this project, so I'm sure you must as well. What questions do you have?
So you're still in the identification phase of what those main problems are and kind of where everything is?
We are, yeah. And honestly, the question asked was, are we still in a phase of discovering what the issues are, where the problems are, and what's here in the watershed? Yes, we are. And I think that phase, honestly, is going to last the entirety of the project. We're going to always have our ears open. We're always going to be open to comments. If something new springs up, come tell us. Over there?
I said, once you identify the large landowners, maybe smaller than, like, say, golf course, what's usually your next step? Is it usually to, like, maybe deal with them, educate them? I'm on.
Thanks. I think I don't mean this to be a cop-out answer, but it's going to depend on a lot of things. For instance, if it's a golf course, I drove past the Marion Golf Course on the way here. And that's a golf course I pass frequently on my way to my office. And I see the one stream that hits the road and it's mowed right to the banks, and it drives me crazy every time. So if it's a golf course like that, we're maybe going to talk to them individually. Maybe we can find some kind of group or association we can talk to them through about trying to green their courses a little bit, not golf course greens, plant up some of their courses. Talking about cemeteries, for instance, one of our task force members, William Leiter, is involved at the Eden Cemetery. So he's sort of an into us there to that cemetery. There is also a state association of cemetery directors or something like that, who we have on our radar to maybe talk to them about practices in general. If we're talking about private landowners, I know that at Natural Lands, when we don't generally target a landowner and then give them a cold call to try to conserve their land. That just doesn't ever work. So if there was some property that we saw and it was privately owned, and we said, this is a really important property to do something there, whether it's acquisition, conservation, trying to encourage them to plant more trees or plant meadows, we would look for somebody first in the task force. Do you know those landowners? Are they worth our time to try to talk to them? Can you connect us to them? Do you know somebody that knows them? So the next steps would be to try to, one, figure out what would we want to do there? What would be the benefits of doing something there? Then try to figure out how to get to them. But I should clarify, we're not, the parcels that were on the map, we're not saying like they all need to be acquired for open space or anything like that. Everyone is going to have a different potential benefit. All right, yeah,
I just thought that's.
yeah.
What are some of the ideas that you suggest?
Well, the big one right now, and as I said too, we haven't gotten too far into it yet. The big one right now is that our task force is pretty representative of the watershed. That was the first piece. But when we do the public outreach part of it, we know we have to make sure that we're at every different part of the watershed, and we have to make ourselves accessible to all the different communities. So that might mean, meeting at a borough building, but it might also mean trying to connect with a church or a mosque or, whatever community centers in the different communities. And really just making sure that we listen, that we get people's concerns in writing, get them into the plan, and just get out there and sort of do the work connecting with people. I don't, like I've said many times, I don't know where this plan actually ends up, but I hope that it ends up at a place too that can better serve the communities, mostly in the lower end of the watershed, that it doesn't matter right now if we tell them this grant funding is out there and you should apply for it, because they don't have anybody that has the time in their borough office to actually apply for a grant or to monitor a grant or manage a grant. I hope that this plan gets us to a point where maybe we can recommend something like a regional grant writer to help those communities. We do a lot of work right now with the city of Coatesville. So I'm thinking about all the issues in Coatesville. They just don't have capacity to do the things that a lot of other communities can do. Like, Radnor, for instance, has their own planning department. They have staff that can review plans closely, that can write grant applications. The boroughs at the lower end of the watershed probably do not. So even we found in Coatesville, even when you make opportunities known, they just don't have time or people to do it. So I do hope that this plan at the end, and this also goes back to when I mentioned the Blue Acres, talking to more of our local leaders about what kind of programs can we set up, what kind of real life help can we give communities instead of just handing a plan to them and saying, do it. So that was a long kind of rambling answer to, we're still trying to figure it out. But I mean, we do want it to be a major part of the plan to connect with everybody. Thank you.
Rick, one area where I imagine you'll get into issues around that is with the parks assessment work with the Foundation for Delaware County's.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. That is a good reminder. When I put up the funding screen, one of the funders was the Foundation for Delaware County. And I kind of breezed over it because it can get a little bit confusing, but the foundation has pledged a chunk of money which is directly related to looking at parks in underserved communities. And we're looking at those parks as places where we can do things that improve recreation, improve access to the waterways, and also better protect and steward the waterways. So that chunk of funding, which is pretty substantial, is directed right now at underserved communities. So we definitely do have that focus there. We're not very far along in that chunk of it either yet, though. But we're starting to look at the parks. And I want to make it clear too that we're not talking about taking parks and like just covering them with riparian buffers, but how do we make these parks more usable, more functional, and implement green infrastructure and flooding protections all at the same time. So we'll be looking at the parks, making recommendations, and for a few of them, we'll actually be doing mini master plans at no charge to the community. We will, for those projects, have to work pretty closely with those communities. We also don't want to just drop a plan on them and say, here's something you didn't ask for, but we think you should do this. That never goes well either. We don't want to do that. I see Jacqueline lurking, so
We could take one more. I'm just starting.
any more questions? And I'll hang around a little bit too, if anybody wants to pop out and talk more. All right, thank you all.
Thanks, Rick. One thing I did want to just add, just I have the mic, is that in terms of looking at equity issues is really looking at ways to have upstream communities reduce downstream flooding. Because it's been an unfair process over the years that you could develop in your community and not deal with the ramifications of flooding because it all just drains off quickly and then goes further downstream. So there has to be a process to try to address and capture as much as possible upstream as well, not just what you do downstream, because inevitably you're never going to achieve what you need to. Okay, so moving on, and just so you know, we are trying to be done about close to 11:45. So we have two more speakers and then we'll just have some quick blasts. And we have Jamie Singer and Joe McNeil, both volunteers with Preserve Oakwell, and we'll hear more about another great place that we need to protect, right? So Jamie, you're starting? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're getting there. Do I tell?
Can I see them in speaker? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how do I move ahead with that? Can I do
You
it?
just hit the arrow. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
all.
can't see arrows. There, right there.
Yeah, there's the arrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Singer. I'm with a grassroots local effort to save a valuable mainline estate called Oakwell. It's been in the news lately. I'm not sure who has heard anything about Oakwell. Okay, good. Half the room has, and Robin, because she's been there. So this is a once secret garden that is now unfortunately under threat, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So this is my purpose. I'm going to give you a brief background on Oakwell then and now. I'm going to explain to you why Oakwell is in danger, and I'm going to talk about the efforts that we have made to save this beautiful place. And if you want to help us, we would welcome the help. So let's go back to Philadelphia Inquirer of last fall, headline story. The headline says, "Storied mainline estate becomes a battleground." And if you look at the map, this was also in the Inquirer article, I can sort of explain to you what has happened since then. So at the bottom of the screen is a estate called Stoneleigh. It is now open to the public. I'll ask another question. Who's been to Stoneleigh? Perfect. For those of you who haven't, I really encourage it. It's beautiful. It's open 6 days a week. It's free of charge. It's run by Natural Lands, and it's absolutely beautiful estate, and is very connected to Oakwell because at one point Stoneleigh was all, there was no Oakwell until 1920. It was all part of the Stoneleigh property. So what happened is the Lower Merion School District decided they needed to build a new middle school, a third middle school, and they hadn't been very successful. So they looked at the Stoneleigh property, and the Stoneleigh property, you may know, it was called the Haas Estate, and there was great fanfare because this property was going to be open to the public. And right before that time, the school district said, that looks like a good property for our third middle school. Never you mind that Stoneleigh was in a conservation easement. They tried to take it by eminent domain anyway. Well, there was such an outcry that this went to the state legislature, and in record time and in a bipartisan move, the state legislature passed a law. And the law said, hey, you public entity like school district, if a property has already been in a conservation easement, you can't take that away. You're going to have to go through the court system. So the school board said, well, okay, we don't have time to do that. We need our middle school. And so let's look at another property. The property they looked at was another old mainline estate called Claremont. That's where the site of the current Black Rock Middle School is now. That was owned by the Clothier family, beautiful estate with large Horace Trumbauer mansion. But the owners wanted to sell this property, so they sold it. So now we have the Black Rock Middle School on this site. The school currently has cost $13 million and counting. I believe it's the most expensive middle school in the Commonwealth. And this very expensive school, the school board said, we don't have enough field space. We need some auxiliary fields. So they looked around in the neighborhood and they found the Oakwell property, which is a 13.4 acre property. And as I said, was originally all part of the Stoneley property. And that is where they decided they were going to put these auxiliary fields. So 10 acres of the 13.4 acres at Oakwell are now owned by the school district. And they've had some recent plans. You might have heard about the polo field in Haverford. They might be using that for the spring sports, but they've been very unclear about exactly what they're going to do. But at the last we know, they said, we're okay, that'll free us up to make more different plans maybe for soccer fields on the Oakwell property. So that's where things stand right now. And so let me get into a little bit more about Stoneley and Oakwell, their past and what's happening at the present. So as I said, Stoneley and Oakwell, it was all Stoneley at one point. Pennsylvania Railroad man named Edmund Smith bought this property, Stoneley, in 1870, and 1877, they built a beautiful mansion on that property. Oakwell was carved out of that property. And as I said, it's 13.4 acres. It was owned by the second owners, the Bodines, who bought this property and built a beautiful Tudor Revival mansion for their son and daughter-in-law who had just gotten married. And this is just a little comparison. Here is here's the current map with in the middle. That's where fields are going to be. And then on the other side, this is just an old map from 1920 that just shows, and it shows the Clothier estate, Claremont at top, and it shows, of course, it was called Stoneley then. It shows the whole property that belonged to then the Bodine family. This is a map by the Olmsted brothers that shows the entire Stoneley property. They were the premier landscape architects of the 20th century. And in fact, they had a 50-year relationship with both of these properties. Very significant. And this is a piece of a 1921 survey by the Olmsted brothers. This shows part of the Oakwell property that is now owned by the school district, or most of it. At the bottom, and we'll look a little more carefully at this, at the bottom, there is a greenhouse complex, which is beautiful. At the top right is a women's dormitory. And you might say, why is a women's dormitory on an estate? And I'll explain to you that in a minute. In the middle top, that is the superintendent's cottage. And then on the far left is a beautiful Japanese tea house that predates the Oakwell days. So let's look at some of these beautiful things on the property. And by the way, this is not a property that's been abandoned or not lived in. It has been lived in this whole time. So it's not like it's falling down, the houses. This is a greenhouse complex. It was designed by a famous Philadelphia architect, Frank Miles Day. You might be familiar with some of his local works at Penn, Franklin Field, Houston Hall, University of Pennsylvania Museum. Those were all designed by Frank Miles Day. So you can see this greenhouse made out of brick, unusual architecture. In the middle, there's one of what was 4 greenhouses in this complex. This is the one that is left. And let's look at what it looked like in the past. So back in the day, the House and Garden in 1903 thought that this property was very unusual and was worthy of a feature in the magazine. So on the left-hand side, you can see what the greenhouses look like. The front is towards the left. This is from the south, from the Stoneleigh side. And here is a greenhouse looking very much like the greenhouse we see today. And here's the front of the greenhouse. This has changed, unfortunately. It has a beautiful colonnade and a trellis. That unfortunately is not there now. We can see evidence of where the colonnade was and the trellises. And here, looking at the complex, and here's a large white oak. This is from 1903. On the left-hand side, you can see more than 100 years later, here is that white oak today. And here it is in full bloom in front of the greenhouse. This is another Frank Miles Day structure. It's in a Cotswold cottage pattern. It's called Acorn Cottage. And this is where the superintendent, Francis Canning, and his wife lived. Francis Canning was an Englishman. He worked as an apprentice at a substantial castle in England. Then he came to the United States. The Bodines, who were the owners at the time, hired him away from Fairmount Park where he was working. And this is where he supervised all of the horticulture, the growing, the greenhouse complex, and everything else on the property. Interestingly, Mr. Canning had an untimely and early death at 44. The newspaper accounts at the time said that his workers had collected mushrooms, given them to his wife to make a meal, and she made a meal, and unfortunately, poor Mr. Canning died. I can't tell you any more about it. We don't have a lot of information. He is buried in Westminster Cemetery in Ballakimid on the other side of West Laurel Hill Cemetery. His wife isn't there, but it's a mystery, so we really don't know. Incidentally, a lot of these people that we talk about, the architect Frank Miles Day, the Bodines that had such a great influence on this property, they're all permanent residents in Ballakimid, with the rest of them at Laurel Hill West. So let's just talk a little bit about Eleanor and Samuel Bodine, who were the owners. They both had great interest in horticulture and architecture and arborism. I just said that wrong. Anyway, they had a lot of interest, and they decided, Mrs. Bodine decided prior to World War I, that she was going to develop a program for college women. And they were going to learn horticulture in a real world situation at Oakwell, in the gardens and in the greenhouses and greenhouse complex. So she had a horticulture program. Here is a 1920 ad looking for the young women who might be interested in the program. And Mrs. Bodine worked very hard with the Pennsylvania School of Horticulture for Women, which is now Temple's Ambler campus, which was the first horticulture program for women in the United States. This article from 1920 is interesting when you think about it, because it's at the same time that women finally won the right to vote. So Mrs. Bodine was probably a woman very much ahead of her time. And here is a little article from the 1926 House and Garden magazine looking back on this program that Mrs. Bodine had. It says, in those days of war, 8 or 9 girls were employed as assistants in the gardens. They were housed in a building originally intended for 4 horses and tool sheds, but suitably refitted for them. One of the girls, who possessed a keen sense of humor, named the abode Squirrel Inn. The sobriquet still clings to it. And it still is called Squirrel Inn. This is the dorm. It is now a private home. Mr. Bodine, Samuel Bodine, also was very interested in gardening, and he was a leader of what was called the Mainline Community War Garden Committee. And this asked folks to donate their land for war gardens during World War I, all up and down the Pennsylvania Railroad from Marion up to Villanova. And they had 500 acres on the main line dedicated to this war garden effort. And here are some posters encouraging people to participate in the war gardens. Early on, they called them war gardens. Later, They were called Victory Gardens, I think from a marketing effort that was probably more positive. And so there were Victory Gardens during World War I and during World War II in the United States and other places. Now you might ask, is there any evidence of these Victory Gardens at this property? And sorry, you would be right. Here are the former Victory Gardens. There wouldn't have been a fence there. That's the Stoneleigh side, 2.5 acres. On the other side of this fence, there would be that greenhouse complex, and there were two sets of stairs down a berm that went to the Victory Gardens. There was also an acre of apple orchards. There are still some of the apple trees at Oakwell, and there's another acre across from Spring Mill, right across from the property. And these are just a few little interesting things that you can see at Oakwell. On the left-hand side, you can see a tea house. It actually is from 1903, so it actually is on the Oakwell property, but it was part of Stoneleigh. At the time, there was a long road, dramatic road that came down from Stoneleigh with an alley of linden trees all along here. And then you would travel down this roadway, and then you can enjoy yourself at this remote and charming Japanese tea house. There still are 3 linden trees left from that original alley that's on the Stoneleigh side. In the middle, you can see a similar kind of a summer house. That was at Claremont, the Clothier property. That's a 1919 photo. They actually had 2 of them. And then unfortunately, the other photo is the summer house right before it was demolished for the Black Rock Middle School. So this currently is the proposed site of the accessory fields for Black Rock Middle School. This is the vast amount, the 10 acres of the Oakwell property. Unfortunately, I don't have an updated map. The school district has not been forthcoming about their plans. So we really don't, we know, as far as we know, there's still plans to build soccer fields, which means soccer fields and bathrooms and parking lots and all sorts of things on this property. That's the latest we know, because they haven't really been up to date with us on what their plans are. Maybe they don't have plans yet. So if you want to stay in touch with us or you're interested, we have a website, growoakwell.com, with lots of information, much more history and what we're doing these days. You can also email us at growoakwell.com. We have a very lively Facebook page called Save Oakwell that you can go on. It's a public page, so you can just join and see what's going on there. And who actually has been to Oakwell besides Robin and Sarah? Okay, Angela. Okay. So we have tours virtually every Sunday since the fall. We have been doing tours of this property where you can see the structures. We've also been allowed to go into the mansion, which, by the way, has I think the largest collection of Mercer tiles in a private home. The entire downstairs was furnished in 1920 with Moravian tiles. So tomorrow we have a tour. And it's at 1:30. You can go to Save Oakwell on our Facebook page to find out more information. And I have breaking news. As of yesterday, we announced this. So we applied to the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office. They looked at both Oakwell and Stoneleigh as one big property. And they've decided that this property will be, the property is based on its architecture and landscape architecture. It is eligible to be on the National Register of Historic Places, which is a great thing, because that means that we at Oakwell, the folks that are trying to help Oakwell, we think this is an important place, but it means that the state thinks it's an important place too. So thank you for your kind attention. Next, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Joe McNeil. He's going to talk about trees and stuff. And take it away, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. And can I get some help with the transition? There's another presentation. Yes. And maybe we take a quick break for questions.
We can do questions. Ask away. Sarah.
One of the things I don't think you found, they cannot fly.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thank you. That's a really important point. So we saw how close the Black Rock Middle School is to the Oakwell estate. they can't get directly there. And they can't walk around because the streets have no sidewalks. So it's obviously a safety hazard. So the kids at that school, and here's Oakwell, here's the school, they will have to be bused if they want to do sports there. Thanks, Sarah, because that's a crazy, crazy thing. Timothy.
Okay, he didn't forward it to me. Hold on, I can forward it.
Yeah, thank you. So Joe's going to talk about that. We're actually in 3 watersheds, Darby Creek and the Gulf Creek and the Mill Creek. So it has an influence on everything and everywhere, as we know. Joe's going to talk about all that, but thank you. Yes.
How does the historical representation of the sites impact the middle schools and the school districts and to the builders?
That's a really good question. And I have to say, we're not sure. It's unclear. First of all, the school district, we got this information 3 weeks ago. We released it literally yesterday. Letters went out to the conservation people and to natural lands and to the school district and then to the media, just came out. They have not made a statement on any of this yet. I don't know if they will. They might not. So it's unknown what that actually means and what kind of implications there are there. Thank you.
Being eligible is not being.
Correct.
Being on the national register offers no protection at all. Anybody on the national register of the property can have that registry taken away simply by requesting it.
Right, but on the other hand, this thing may generate a groundswell of more interest in protecting this. And this is a school board. I live in Lower Merion Township. I went to Lower Merion schools and so did my twins. I'm a taxpayer. It is outrageous to a lot of folks, and this will increase recognition of what's happening here, and it's a good thing. And it shows that somebody else thinks this is an important place and worth saving too. But thank you for that information. Okay. Oh, but wait, I got one more
All right,
question.
one more.
Yes.
You
Can you show
exit out
me-
of this.
Oh, okay. Can you show me presenter?
Okay. Sure.
This is kind of, it's just basically a question that came to mind. with the presentation. Looking at the map where the school is, there's Villanova University
Yes.
and it has fields. And I'm just wondering,
What did you do?
what is that?
Hmm?
relationship?
What did you get?
This button.
University?
I think that's
So the question is about Villanova University and why can't the school district to use those fields? That's a very good question. The school district, actually, when this originally came up, when this fight started, they had said, well, if there are any additional fields, then we welcome your suggestions. They didn't do any work on looking at anything else at that point. That was the place that they wanted, and that's the place they decided on. We know that there's other places.
Yes.
We know there's
Yeah,
other
that's
opportunities,
okay.
including
How do I
a private,
This one.
just okay.
a guy down the road, and I went and did a site visit, literally has a regulation soccer field on his property that he would sell. They'd have to put some sort of an easement, but it's not on any road, and the kids can literally walk from the middle school down a path to a soccer field. You can park everything back up on this school site. So your question is very valid. They haven't been super interested in pursuing it. They put this money out. They paid a lot of money for 10 acres of land, and there's, pretty much so far, we haven't heard anything otherwise of other opportunities. They did work out a deal with the Jewish Community Center, which is at Haverford and City Line Avenue, but that's for spring sports. And maybe that's until they can get Polo Field. Polo Field has not been a popular choice with the parents or with the neighbors around Polo Field. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. Some of the school population lives really closer to City Line Avenue than to Villanova on the other, the far end of the school district. Yeah. Sarah, did you? Uh-oh. Okay, we got Sarah with a rumor. I'm just telling a few folks. Sarah has a rumor Villanova is very interested in purchasing Radnor Valley Golf Club. So that's rumor central from Sarah, and thank you. Now it's good. All right, let me turn this over to Joe.
All right, thank you, Jamie. And sorry, Jamie and I have kind of separate presentations. Jamie covers kind of the history and overview during our tours. And when I'm invited to provide tours, I cover kind of the ecological and ecosystem services piece of the presentation. So hello, everyone. My name is Joe McNeil. I'm a volunteer with Save and Preserve Oakwell. I have a day job, and I think many of you have day jobs, and in your private lives, you volunteer selflessly your time. That's the case for me as well. I'm a PHS tree tender. I run my own tree tender group called Ardmore Tree Stewards. In the last year and a half, we've planted 80 trees in Lower Merion, including in the Darby Creek watershed. In particular, we've been focusing on the west branch of the Indian Creek. I think Rick mentioned the east branch of the Indian Creek during his presentation. Including many areas that are the headwaters of tributaries into the watershed. I'm a parent of a 4th grader and a 1st grader in Lower Merion School District. Both of my children attend Penguin Elementary and will be going to Black Rock Elementary School, which these fields as possible field space subject to our presentation today. I am also involved in a variety of other volunteer efforts, including the Lower Merion Township Shade Tree Commission, and I'm a Pennsylvania Master Naturalist. All right. So, you know, this project to potentially build fields on Oakwell has been very concerning to me over the past 2 years. Last year, I wrote to the school board with a lot of comments about my concerns. But very recently, say 6 months ago, I became even more concerned. It did seem like the school district was moving forward with plans to build fields at this site. Just in September, we had at the township, we had a graduate consultant give the Shade Tree Commission a talk. And as part of his talk, he talked about how the tree canopy in Lower Merion Township, which has been a very leafy green suburb. Sorry about that. The tree canopy has been reduced by 12% over the past 20 years. So pretty shocking to many of us. And this is kind of a death by 1,000 cuts. One of the sites that he talked about when he kind of zeroed in on areas of tree canopy decline was the site of the Black Rock Elementary School, which is a separate site, not within school children walking distance from the Oakwell site. And that was very alarming to me. So in addition to that, this very large area where many acres of trees were removed, we're talking about an additional parcel for tree removal. So in the wake of that, I put together an iTree canopy assessment of the Oakwell site using a USDA Forest Service iTree canopy tool. Found 72% as tree canopy and shrubs on the site, and I do think that's conservative. Other parties have found it to be higher. 14 tons of carbon sequestered annually by trees on the site, 360 tons of carbon stored in existing trees and the tree tissues right there. And we do have a mature forest fragment on site and many heritage type trees on the property and younger trees. The site removes 785 pounds of air pollution annually. And the current state, as opposed to a prospective future state, includes thousands of gallons in hydrological benefits each year. Those hydrological benefits include avoided runoff, evaporation, and other benefits. So this property is directly next door to Stoneleigh, and Jamie very well provided a great overview of the relationship to Stoneleigh. It's quite directly connected to Stoneleigh. And if you notice, Stoneleigh is a fantastic property. It's just like Oakwell, it's a combination of architecture, history, and kind of ecological services of the site. But what Stoneleigh kind of lacks is a woodland, okay? And the woodland is at Oakwell. There is a very sizable forest fragment in Oakwell. It is made of beech trees, American beech trees, tulip poplar, and to a lesser extent, white and red oak species. It does have an understory, species like American hornbeam, spicebush, and native rhododendron. It's all present there. The property has been stewarded. So unlike many natural areas in the region, we do not see a large prevalence of invasive plants. The property has been taken care of. We don't even have a separation of a roadway. It is quite a direct connection to the property of Stoneleigh. So I hadn't been on site until this fall, but very quickly when you go on site, you do enter into this woodland area. I walked the entire site. There's lots of excellent tree specimens. It's absolutely like an arboretum. This site could absolutely become a future arboretum. But there is a native mature woodland sitting right there connected to Stoneleigh quite literally. So thousands of floral and faunal species use this ecological corridor. From resident and migrating birds to tiny pollinators, to the genetics of the native plant community and the unique genetics of the native plants in the woodland. Roughly 250 bird species are either year-long residents or migrate through the Villanova area. Yep.
Point out County Line Road so we can be oriented to.
Sure. So County Line Road is right here. Yep.
Thank you.
So we're talking about right over this way.
Up there is where the middle, over there is the middle.
Thank you.
So in terms of the middle school is off this image. It's kind of up off this image. And you know, this doesn't represent the entire plan up on the screen. It represents a plan, you know, one part of the plan, but the softball, soccer, and practice soccer fields were going right where this woodland is, so clear cutting this area. Another part of the plan that we don't see here, other areas of connection to Stoneleigh in terms of woodland fragments and direct ecological pathways. All right, and these are just a few images from that woodland. And I'll wrap it up here by saying our watersheds are connected. So this is at the headwaters of multiple watersheds. So, you know, higher up in the watershed, whatever happens there impacts lower down in the watershed. So every single water body in Lower Merion is considered impaired by the EPA. I think that's probably true regionally, that many water bodies are considered impaired. The removal of 500 plus trees will have local and further reaching impacts. So the Oakwell site includes a wetland near the headwaters of several water bodies, including Harding's Run. So that connects to Villanova area into Delaware County and the Darby Creek watershed, as well as unnamed tributaries to Mill Creek and a tributary to Gulf Creek leading to the Schuylkill River watershed. So as I say in our tours, this site is a pretty terrible candidate for fields. I've talked to my children about this. Great candidates for fields include strip malls, defunct strip malls, existing parking lots, existing fields, existing areas where there's either impervious surface or the ground has been cleared in the past. This is one of the worst places for that at the headwaters of several water bodies, producing so many ecosystem services with a direct ecological connection to Stoneleigh, which is now preserved. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to shift things around a little bit so I can get a minute or two to pull up PowerPoint that we have a couple of Haverford High School students giving us for about 15 minutes. So while I do that, if I can have Aurora, Lauren, Peter, and Robin come up here to give their 2-minute blast of different activities that are going on, that would be appreciated. In addition, if I could get those that brought a poster to stand up. Yeah. Oh, good. Just wanted to highlight, and this is Marie, correct, from Ursinus?
Yes.
And you have shared, there's information over here on an analysis of 2 first order streams and looking at how impervious surface and land management obviously impacts water quality. So thank you for doing that. We will have some time at the end to look at the posters that are here. And obviously, hopefully you'll be able to stick around a little bit if people have questions. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, turn it over to Aurora.
Right. Hi, everyone. So I'm just giving you a brief update about the annual cleanup. Many of you have been involved with DCVA far longer than me, so you could probably give this update yourself. But as you know, DCVA has been doing these annual watershed-wide cleanups since 1984. It is our biggest initiative of the year, you could say. It is very big undertaking, lots and lots and lots of volunteer help is needed. So this year, they're going to be 4 Saturdays in April. We used to do it on 1 Saturday. Last year, we tried out spreading it out throughout the month because logistically, it's just a lot easier to make sure everyone has their supplies and communicating with all the captains and volunteers. So again, we're doing it 4 Saturdays. It's April 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. So please check out the website, dcva.org, go to watershed cleanups. What we have there now is about 20 or so sites listed. We're still adding sites. So I see many cleanup captains in the room, so thank you. But you can still sign up. So if there's a Saturday in April that you're willing to say, hey, I know a site, it needs to be picked up, because, you know, me and the board, we don't know everywhere that's needs picked up, right? We rely on so many of all of you, our members and volunteers, to say, I live here, I know this needs to be cleaned up, and I'm willing to help out, and we'll get you all the supplies to do that. So thank you to everyone who helps out, and that's it. So yeah, thanks. Next will be Lauren McGrath talking about our wonderful community science.
Hi, everyone. This is so exciting to see you all here. My name is Lauren McGrath. I'm a board member here at DCVA, and I work over out at Willistown Conservation Trust. And since 2021, Aurora and I have been working together to do community science work in the Darby Creek watershed. And I know we have a ton of watershed volunteers here today. So if you want to raise your hand, and I know we have a couple on Zoom, it's so wonderful to see you all together. So our work includes monthly visits to sites throughout the Darby Creek watershed. And we go out and we look at fluoride levels and conductivity to get an idea of what's happening on the landscape and how that's impacting our waterways. So I'm really excited to announce that as of the end of March, we have reached 30 volunteers at over 25 sites throughout the watershed. We're still accepting volunteers. So if you want to monitor a site, or you know of a location in the watershed that you think would benefit from getting a volunteer out to monitor, please let Aurora or I know. We have a gathering at the end of March where we're going to be sharing and launching our community science portal, which will live online and show all of the data. It will be updated monthly. So you'll be able to go and see what's happening in the watershed, and hopefully from this, we'll be able to identify, maybe working with Rick, areas where we can prioritize restoration, prioritize education, and get more people thinking about our waterway as an amazing resource rather than a threat when it shows up at our doorsteps during big storm events. So thank you all so much.
You want to intro this?
I'm sure. So you're about to see a very quick video that was prepared by the Cobbs Creek Environmental Justice Organization. Neither one of those principals, Larry S. and Shri Jan, could be here, so I agreed to just air it for you, and I'll just have a couple of things to say afterwards. You may know where the Cobbs Creek golf course is on the edge of Philadelphia, and this is a shocking video, so go ahead.
West Philly. It is 350 acres of public land owned by the city. The Cobbs Creek Golf Club was more than just a golf course to the community. It was a place of wonder and discovery. Here you see a 10-pound hen of the woods mushroom foraged at the golf course in 2018. And a home to wildlife. This red fox was photographed on the golf course in May of 2021. All that changed after the city leased the land to a private developer, the Cobbs Creek Foundation. The terms, 350 acres up to 70 years for $1. 2 months later, 108 acres of trees were destroyed. The foundation clearly admits to cutting down an estimated 500 heritage trees, healthy native trees as old as 100 years. Who is behind the Cobbs Creek Foundation? This is the foundation's leadership. 4 members of the McGuire family hold high-level positions, including the top leadership role. Who are the McGuires? James McGuire, head of the McGuire Foundation, pulled scholarship funds for UPenn when students peacefully protested police killings of unarmed black people. The McGuires don't live in our neighborhoods. These are the trees in Chris McGuire's neighborhood. These are our trees. None of the foundation's leadership live in Philly. These are their neighborhood trees. These are our trees. Who handed our public land to the foundation? Catherine Ott Lavelle, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. Follow Cobbs Creek Environmental Justice on Facebook to stay up to date on future events and to find out how to get involved.
So regrettably, on top of that destruction in 2021, the Park and Rec has agreed to help support the passage of an ordinance in Philadelphia, creating an overlay, allowing more clear cutting on the steep slopes on this golf course property. Their intent is to restore a plan for the golf courses that was crafted in the early 1900s. And the problem is that's before we really understood what, all of the importance of protecting waterways, protecting, buffering streams and ensuring that you prevented erosion, that kind of thing. So it's a plan that is just completely outdated, but the city has kind of rolled over to allow them to restore this plan from the early 1900s. The other thing I'll note is that during COVID, after the golf courses closed temporarily, and during COVID, the land reverted to a lot of vegetation, and there was a lot of local recreational use, passive recreational use, with birding, walking, and a lot of people enjoyed that property in a very different way, as has occurred with FDR Park in Philadelphia. So unfortunately, the city was tone deaf to the desires of a lot of people, to be able to enjoy the property going forward. One of the things we hope is that engaging with Cobbs Creek Environmental Justice and other community organizations through the Darby Creek Watershed Plan, we can engage with them about helping to promote the desires they have for somehow accessing the golf course once it's renovated. So that's one of the things we'll be working on. I'm sorry they're not here to present their case and answer your question.
Thanks, Ron.
Hi, I'm Peter Pugliese. I'm just going to give an update on the Growing Greener project. This was a very ambitious project to install rain gardens within a very small area, a community around Brookline Boulevard in Haverford Township. And very ambitious because the objective was to get about half of the residents within a target area to install rain gardens and measure before and after stormwater flows. This started probably at the worst possible time at the beginning of the pandemic. It made it very, very difficult to achieve the project goals. And I do want to give a shout out to Aurora and Giselle, who helped step in, and Steve Lockhart, who helped step in, and Jamie, who I think is on, Jamie Anderson, who is on Zoom. And we all kind of rolled up our sleeves, and other volunteers rolled up our sleeves and gave it a good try to achieve the project goals. I think we wound up getting 9 rain gardens in the target area versus we were hoping for like 50. And so we sort of took a step back and recalibrated the project with DCNR and basically came up with an alternate plan, which was rain gardens everywhere in the watershed where we could get them in. And so we wound up putting a lot of rain gardens in throughout the watershed. And we also did, I guess, riparian restoration work at the Fallcroft property, which is owned by DCVA. And so at any rate, we did kind of push it over the finish line. And one day, maybe we'll go back to a very, very ambitious project. I guess, it's sort of a lesson in humility, which is we all care about this stuff passionately. We believe in it, but it's a very heavy lift to get even 50% of the population in an area to do the right thing. And so keep trying.
Thanks.
Can I mention one other thing?
Yeah.
Not on the agenda. I did want to also give a shout out to Steve, who initiated a very ambitious tree and shrub planting program in Upper Darby last year. They have a nursery. This year we joined the party, have a rain garden, and Haverford Recreation also are jumping in, trying to get a delivery of, I think, 1,100 trees to Rose Tree Park. And then from there, the various entities are going to be either planting them or giving them away with traceability to where they're being planted, which is part of the Plant 10 Million Trees in Pennsylvania effort. So to participate in that, I guess, look for further communications from Have a Rain Garden, Haverford Recreation, Upper Darby Rain Gardens. And I think if it goes well, maybe DCVA, I pitched it to Aurora, that maybe we could even associate it with the cleanup program, in the sense that what you need for this program is people that have this understanding of trees, the skill to plant it, the desire to take care of it long enough for them to establish themselves. And what better community than this to do that, I think. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, here. Lots of great programs by many volunteers and board members, and that was a great program Steve did in Upper Darby as well. So, couple blasts, you can find more information about our Stream Watch program, about Stream Smart House Calls, which is a joint effort with multiple organizations in the region where if you're within a certain location, we do have a website with streamsmarthousecalls.org. And you could, if again, you're within an eligible location, you can actually sign up to get an evaluation of your property and possibly even getting some follow-up rain gardens, rain barrels, or trees. And with that, I will turn it over to Jake and Lucy. Shall we welcome them? So all you gotta do is hit the next button. That's all you gotta do. Right,
Thank
take
you.
it away.
Yes. So I'm Jake Bolby, and then this is Lucy Bannister. We are here on behalf of the Haverford Environmental Club to demonstrate Haverford's environmental initiatives. Okay.
All right, so our purpose as a club is focused around spreading awareness about how to be sustainable and how to interact with our local environment and just to inspire environmental care among our peers.
So what do our meetings look like? Our clubs meet about once a month with about one activity a month. The club officers also have a separate meeting about once a month. And in these meetings, we prepare presentations about topics of interest that we would like to share with the club members.
And then some frequent topics of discussion in our meetings are overconsumption, watersheds, fast fashion, sustainability, and then just other topics that we think are relevant, especially for high school students concerning the environment.
Okay, so one of our meetings was about watersheds. In this meeting, we just discussed like what watersheds are, their importance to the environment, and we also just discussed like what a creek is, particularly like our local ones like Darby Creek and its tributaries. Our purpose for this meeting was to help club members understand the crucial role of these local land areas and how they play a part in our health and community. We discussed like more of the basic parts of like some of the stuff you said today, just to like spread awareness.
And then following that meeting about the watersheds, to have our peers interact with the creek that helps us every day. We did a creek cleanup at the Darby Creek Trail. And our goal was just to have every participant pick up about 1 to 2 bags full of trash. And it was a great way to get everyone out to see how the watershed really helps us and to take care of it.
Another meeting we had was about fast fashion, where we demonstrated like what fast fashion was to our club members and how it could be detrimental to our world's health. We discussed just microfibers, wastewater, air pollution, and like all the other things that these like factories produce. To articulate further on points of discussion, we talked about popular brands that are bad for the environment and what club members can do like in their everyday lives to change that.
And then alternative to fast fashion that we introduced at that meeting was buying clothes secondhand or thrifting. And then to follow that meeting, we're currently planning a Haverford thrift shop where students can bring in gently used clean clothes. And then we set them up and they can buy those clothes after school to help raise funds for our club. And then just to give the clothes a second life outside of the landfill.
Other activities. So in November, the environmental club officers ran a room for Discover Day. Basically, Discover Day is a day where elementary school kids come in and go into different rooms to learn and do science activities. In our room, we talked about owl pellets and like food webs and chains, like our local food webs and chains. And then another activity we did this year was to make posters just to spread environmental concerns that different club members wanted to talk about. And to just raise awareness around the school, and then we hung them up. If you look up in the top left and the middle and the bottom left, those are from Discover Day, and then those are some of the posters we made to put around the school.
All right, and then shifting the focus to classes at Haverford that are concerned with the environment and just our other science courses. So of course, we have an environmental science class, and we offer this at AP and honors levels. And this class focuses on the interdependence of Earth systems, renewable and non-renewable resources, environmental quality, global changes and consequences, environment and society, and choices for the future. And then at the AP level, of course, the AP curriculum as well to prepare students for the tests. And then we have an honors level marine ecology course that focuses on marine environments and how human interaction with these environments affects them, and then the health and systems of the ocean. And then we have a biology course that at AP, college prep, and honors levels, and especially with the environment concerns, it touches on ecology, biotechnology, taxonomy, and energy flow. And then we also offer an earth science course. This is an elective, and it focuses on external and internal forces that affect the earth, especially weather and climate patterns. And it also touches on the layers of the earth and the internal aspects of the earth. And then we also have physics courses, astronomy courses, chemistry, and biotechnology courses that could all include climate change and other aspects of our environment as a part of the course.
Expanding on other extracurricular activities outside of our club, we have the Haverford Reef Society. This club is focused on developing appreciation for marine promoting sustainability and developing leaders for ocean conservation among Haverford students. Our Haverford Reef Society has fish tanks set up in some of the classrooms and one in one of the hallways, and kids meet out after school to talk about just like marine food webs and other aspects. We also have the Endangered Species Club. This club raises funds for Earth's endangered species. And then we have the Science Academy. This club coordinates science events at Haverford, and just like Discover Day, which we presented earlier.
All right, and then for the rest of the year and coming years for the environmental club, we have a ton of ideas that we're super excited to start working on. We wanted to do a plant swap and then include further education about local trees and local ecology. And then a Meatless Monday challenge where we could share recipes so that people can start incorporating a plant-based diet into their lives to lessen the effect of the meat industry on the planet. And then something like birdhouse making, which would just be another way to interact with our local environment, and a fun club bonding activity. And then just further discussion on our local environment and plans to help lessen our impact on the environment.
So that is the end of our presentation. We will accept any questions. And I'd just like to add, we did learn a lot today from other presenters that we could definitely talk to our club about. So thank you.
Question?
Okay.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Okay.
I'm so impressed with what you.
Thank you so much.
We just said she was proud of us. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, just curious, are you going to be doing anything special for Earth Day? I know there's sometimes like local organizations, other places do things.
So I'm not sure what the club has done in the past for Earth Day, but I think that we would definitely like to have a meeting on that day and do a couple different activities, but we have to meet with officers.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us here today, and thank you so much for your attention, and to all the other presenters.
Thank you both. Amazing work. All right, so coming to the end of our program. We do have one more item of business to complete, so if I can have Tim come up here to share. We are going to do our board member nominations and approval. I think it's always great to meet new board members rather than breaking for lunch and people leaving and then we do that activity. While Tim comes up here, I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have lunch downstairs in the environmental lab. So please come down and join us. We will have the posters downstairs so people can still look around and have conversation. And I think that is it. If anybody can lend a helping hand to those that might need it as we carry some of the leftover desserts and fruit items, that would be greatly appreciated. All right. Tim used to be the manager here and was instrumental in actually with a couple of other individuals, including Jan Marie Rushforth in this building that we're standing in. It's been a great asset and opportunity for us to join every year.
Thanks, Jacqueline. It is great to, I'm retired now, but still great to be here with DCVA and see this legacy continue here. And you guys from the high school, keep coming. We'll get you on the board one of these days. Right? So, yeah, I am the co-chair of the governance committee along with Lauren. And one of the things we were asked to do was to find new candidates for the board of directors. And so I want to submit these names to the board. And Jacqueline has asked us to do it at this time rather than our business meeting, so y'all can hear who has stepped up and offered to be part of the board. First person is Vanessa Bullock. Is Vanessa here? Hey, terrific, great. So Vanessa, would you mind standing? So this is Vanessa Bullock. And I'm just going to read a little bit about her background and then we call for a vote. So we do. Yep. So first of all, it's nice to meet you. We've gone back and forth. So here's what Vanessa wrote to me. Says, I've been a long-term resident of Delaware County for over 30 years. Initially lived in Yaden and then moved to Lansdowne and bought her dream house right on Darby Creek. During my years in Delaware County, I have been an active member and captain of Darby Creek cleanup, initially in Yaden and now in Lansdowne, in the Hopkins Park area. In those efforts, I've coordinated cleanup efforts with the local Boy Scout troop, William Penn and Upper Darby school districts. I've also served on a few boards, Pennsylvania Council of Mediators and Threshold Organization in Delaware County. My other volunteer duties include community mediation for the Center of the Year 2015. In my professional life, I am employed as a federal mediator for over 25 years, where I mediate workplace disputes in the private and federal sectors. I am married to a labor arbitrator who also volunteers his time each year in cleaning the creek. I earned my MBA at LaSalle University. I am an avid outdoor person who enjoys hiking, biking, and nature walks. And finally, I'm a long-term member of the Philadelphia Horticultural Society who is concerned with preserving green space and other natural resources. I think you would all agree, Vanessa is a wonderful candidate for our board, and I submit her name to the board for a vote to include her on the board of directors. Jacqueline, how do we do that?
So you make the motion?
All right, I make a motion that Vanessa Bullock be appointed to the board of directors for a term of 3 years, right?
Got a second?
Second,
Yep.
Dave, Kate?
Yep. So then all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Vanessa. You want to say that?
I look forward to serving. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
No, absolutely. I thought up the wrong piece of paper.
Oh, no, when you come back, if you could just stand here, then people can see online. They're joining us. If anybody's on the screen and you want to wave hello to our guests here, they can see you. Anybody on Zoom, I mean. There you go. Thumbs up. There's Alan.
So our second nominee, or,
Could you
oh,
stand
I'm
back
sorry.
here and then they can
Oh,
see?
I
You
see.
could stand back.
Got it. So they didn't see.
There you
me.
go.
Oh, I see. Got it. Yes, okay. The second candidate for the board, his name is Andrew Sharp, and Andrew is not with us in person, but he told me he's going to try and be with us here for a while, but he had some other meeting. But Andrew is also a member of DCVA. He is a resident of Glen Olden, PA, has taken part in the cleanup for many years. And part of his background is he is a social media specialist at SEPTA. He is also treasurer and co-founding member of Transportation Camp PHL. And he manages the budget for the Transportation Camp Conference in Philadelphia, assisting with other aspects of the conference, including social media, sponsorship, student outreach, and email communications. Andrew is also a customer service agent at SEPTA. His education is Temple University, graduated February 11th, Bachelor in Art. He has also received SEPTA Customer Service Shining Star Award for work organizing in transportation camp. He went back and graduated again from Temple in 2018. He says his skills are communicating with people, nonprofit budgeting, which Aurora had said if we could get somebody with that kind of background, that would be good. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and others, and computer, internet, and Microsoft, PowerPoint, and Excel. So Andrew was very interested. He's been involved for many years with the cleanup program.
I know Andrew, that I can speak just a second.
Sure. So that's our second candidate, and Scott, let's say.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I've known Andrew, well, I used to know Andrew 20 years ago or something like that. He is a young man still. Andrew, wherever you are, hi. He was very, very dedicated and very active on the Delaware Valley Association of Rail Passengers, and then took a position with SEPTA when it was not a very easy place to be about certain things, and got certain people. So he did an excellent job. He's very energetic. I highly recommend him to this board.
Thank you, Scott. There you go. Like I said, Andrew could not be with us today, but he certainly seemed enthusiastic and brings a lot of different skills to the board. So I make a motion that Andrew Sharp be put on the board of directors for a term of 3 years. Can I get a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. So Andrew, if you're with us, congratulations. You're now on the board. And just want to do a little shout out to Aurora, because Aurora was a big help. Jacqueline had asked the governance committee to take on this task of finding new candidates. And so I've sort of been in contact with Aurora, and she is sending it out to the membership. And so I think we got 2 great candidates, and I actually have a couple other names, but I haven't gotten their final approval if they want to be on it or not. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jacqueline. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim, and the governance committee for all the work that you have been doing in this past year. So it's been great. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you will come back again next year. If there are any suggestions that you might have, feel free to email us. We have this room until 12:15, so if that presents opportunity for you to enjoy the poster boards, and then people don't have to worry about setting them back up again downstairs, we have the time for that. But please join us for lunch. We have soup and sandwiches galore, and it's always fantastic, just so you know, in case you didn't have a chance. So thank you again, everyone. Take care. Thank you, everyone. Sorry you can't have lunch with us. But thank you for joining.
Bye, take care.